welcome today to Corina Goetz. And Corina, first of all, a massive thank you for agreeing to do the podcast with me. And I know that you do a lot of work with people from the Middle East coming to London, and people from London going to the Middle East. You have a background in hospitality, and you also do training, you also do sales, as it says on your background, Star Cat. I like the coconut tree, by the way. So first of all, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for being here.
So thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure, right? So the way it's going to work, obviously, is just like having a conversation, and then you can share a bit about yourself, your business, what you do. You can get to ask questions as well, and yeah. So talk to me about, like, what are you doing right now? I mean, what's keeping you busy right now?
I mean, right now, I have one other person who works with me, Didi. We're looking at, doing a lot more stuff on social media. We're working on our sort of online courses for training for people that want to branch out to the Middle East, but never had that exposure, and it's a very, I think for a lot of people, they feel it's very complex. They don't know where to start. There's so many things to learn. The culture is so different. The names are all the same. How can they even figure out who's the right person to speak to? So that's a project that we've been working on, because obviously our other sort of business is, working with luxury hotels. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic, there wasn't much travel. Correct. So we also tried to come up with new and different ways, to stay in contact with our clients in the Middle East. So I think it's all about learning and innovating and, finding new ways to do business.
Okay, cool. So would you say that you have pivoted because of the pandemic? When I say pivoted, have you changed your business model in any way in order to say continue doing business?
I would say we've expanded it, and I think it gave us a bit more of a clear focus, and it also gave us, I think, the opportunity to do things that we would have never thought that we were going to do. Like, we would have never thought we were going to do a YouTube channel and interview different people, but it actually turned out to be a really good experience. And we just, for example, one of the hotels that we work with, we just did an interview with the managing director, and we sent it to all of our clients in the Middle East, and they loved it.
Yes.
And it was just a really good way of staying in contact, telling people, what the hotel was doing, what sort of, things had been implemented. And it was just really nice, because in the Middle East, for example, YouTube is absolutely massive, and everybody is always on social media, and they love to see anything that is visual is actually really good. So
Oh, that's cool. That is quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, and it's good that you actually kept busy, as you said, or even expanded during the Corona period, because I think a lot of online businesses specifically, I would say, have done really well. You know what I mean? And you say you also started a YouTube channel as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So so if you look out to the horizon and you say, well, next 2-3 years, where do you see your business going?
I think what we're looking to do is to educate a lot more people about the Middle East. I would say predominantly probably the US. I think the UK is pretty knowledgeable about the Middle East, but I feel in the US, there's people that, for example, another new thing that we did was do some stuff on Clubhouse, and we found some people on Clubhouse, and you wouldn't believe some of the people from the US, like, they worry about even going to places like Dubai, which is, like one of the safest places you can go to.
Yeah, I've been there myself.
Yeah, it's all down to what you see in the mainstream media, and it's all down to, what you have heard about the Middle East. And I think for like the US market, it seems so far away. So I think we're definitely going to concentrate on helping people, to understand everything in the Middle East much better. And then I think we'll also look into maybe doing some more speaking at events. I mean, during the whole kind of lockdown that we had in the UK, I also, I was on a couple of webinars and a couple of panels discussing, what is the future and how is tourism developing and things like that. So I think I see it going in that direction, aside from obviously staying in touch with our clients. I think for London as well, a big thing will be, medical travel. I think there's a lot more that's being developed in London. So I think also for clients coming over there to, we have quite strong relationships with a lot of the hospitals and things in London. So to try and help them, get sort of the best fit for what they need. So I think there's loads and loads of avenues.
Wow, there's a lot that you're doing. And I would say it sounds from talking to you so far, it sounds like you operating a lot in the information, probably gathering and information sharing space.
Yes.
Am I correct? Yeah.
Correct. And then also I think in, bringing people together, like connecting the right people together, because I think that's sometimes where, there's sort of like your missing link. You know what you want, but you don't know who to ask for.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So it's a very, very key role that you're playing actually. I know when we was talking earlier, you said it's one of your expertise, obviously, of bringing people together, connecting people together between London and the Middle East. Cool. And you said just you and one person at the moment in your company, am I right?
No, there's two of us.
Okay.
I have one other person, Didi, who works with me. So
yeah. So how long ago did you start business? I mean, like, were you always like an entrepreneur, business minded, or just something that you kind of decide to move into after something happened?
Well, basically, so my business has been going for about 6 years, so since 2015. And I mean, it initially came about because I wanted to have a little bit more freedom after my son was born, so I could sort of, take him to school and pick him up, and that became very important because, timing is very flexible when you work with the Middle East. So first of all, they have a different working week to us in the UK.
True.
So a lot of the time I would get calls on Sunday and things like that, and and then also like in the evening. So for me to be flexible, that was the initial aim to start the business. And then it just kind of kept rolling along, and different projects came at different times. And then I think it came to a really interesting point when obviously COVID hit, because, it took away all the sort of travel, and so the hospitality industry, I mean, really, really suffered. And of course, nobody could travel. So that sort of part of the business, went away. And you kind of had to come up with something new. And it was actually really funny because during that time, that was the time that I actually employed Didi, which was last year in September. So it was during sort of COVID. But it worked out really well because I think we have a very good dynamic. We have a lot of new things that we want to try. And it's worked really well so far. So I think, if COVID hadn't come, we probably would have never looked at. Or for me, I would have never looked at the business and think, hold on a minute, maybe we need to diversify a bit more and find a few other avenues and do a couple of things different. And also, and I'm not sure if that was the same for you, but like also put myself out there a bit more, be on webinars, speak on different panels and things like that. And I would have never really,
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. No, just go ahead.
No, so I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think I would have never, put myself out there if COVID hadn't hit, because I had to find new ways, and I also had to find new ways to do things different. And I think what everybody learned is that you have to sort of innovate yourself, and you have to find new ways of doing it, and maybe come up with a new concept, because maybe things are going to change moving forward. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think things are really going to change, and I think if you don't innovate and if you don't learn something new and you try to diversify, I think you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, and I really like everything that you've said, and today, right? And when I do these podcasts, I never like. I mean, I have a few general questions which I ask people about. I think, and just because of you and who you are, I just thought let me talk to you about more about your background per se. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are going to be some financial, not say financial mindset questions, but nothing too taxing. But it's very interesting. And one of the things, as you said, so traditionally, I worked in corporate, and I was a consultant and I work for financial services companies, but I always wanted to do my own business from a point of view of training, from a point of view of helping people to understand finance, especially small business owners and entrepreneurs on finance more. And what happened is that just before COVID hit, I actually was doing some events in London, like in hotels, etc. And I don't know if it's just luck or insight or foresight or whatever you want to call it, but some kind of a site anyway. Um, I just said, no, I'm going to go online more. And to some extent, I kind of missed the boat because I remember like many years ago going to a business seminar in Excel Center in London, and the guy called Shakir. And I was like, I went 4 or 5 years ago, and he says, go online, online education, online this, online that. And I stick that on my vision board, and I didn't really action it. But however, once COVID hit, what I did is actually accelerated that.
Mm.
And I started doing, I mean, I was already on the journey, but I think I had to accelerate the journey. And I like what you said, right? Because I think e-commerce online is the way to go. I think even having more creative ways of connecting people. Uh,
Agree.
yeah,
Yeah, agree.
yeah, yeah, and a lot of apps, a lot of stuff is coming out. I mean, you mentioned Clubhouse actually. Just interestingly, maybe something we can just touch on quickly because I think they're now open up for Android users.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was a big town hall yesterday. So, are you on there much? Clubhouse much?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on there, a little bit, sometimes passive, sometimes with a couple of people talking about travel and talking about the Middle East and things. We had some really interesting rooms, but I think it's also very interesting if you want to just educate yourself on
Correct.
stuff. Like I've been on like quite a few LinkedIn rooms to try
Yeah.
and understand, what you need to do, in order to sort of broaden your reach. Um,
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean,
Oh, what
yeah,
happened? I
yeah,
think you are
yeah.
frozen.
That's
Ah,
all
okay,
right.
now you're back.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, if I'm frozen or whatever, just keep talking. It's fine.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
be
So,
okay. Yeah,
yeah, so I love it. I think it's a really interesting app. It's very interesting that you can't see anyone,
yeah,
and that you can talk, that sometimes you can just listen and you can learn, but you can also chime in if you like to. So, and I think with, podcasting being so big,
yeah.
I think a lot of people love it. I mean, I certainly know that there's a lot of people who really love Clubhouse, and I also think, again, it was one of those things where this is a new app, it is something new. I think if you don't look into it, if you don't know what it is, if you haven't experienced it, at some point you're going to get left behind,
Yeah,
because I think you need to move with it. And
I
it's
agree. I agree.
and a
Yeah,
lot of people say, oh, there's so much social and it's all too much and whatever, but I think you need to kind of just pick what is right for you. But I still think you need to try it,
of course, of
because
course.
it is the future. All these social media apps, this is what's going to happen. And
Yeah,
also,
yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, we are in a digital world. You know what I mean? Or for want of a better word, you could say we actually in a data-driven world. I mean, if you look at all the big companies like supermarkets, even the airline industry, even the hotels, actually, everyone is just using more data now. You know what I mean? To kind of make decisions.
mhm,
And then you find that also information. We are kind of in the information era where
yes,
people no longer is there. I mean, some of the stuff that you're hearing on Clubhouse, and for people who listen to this who don't know what Clubhouse is, it's a new drop-in conversation audio app where you can go and join rooms and you can listen in, you can set up your own rooms, etc. And if anybody is listening who's not on Clubhouse, who is in my contacts who wants invites, I actually got some invites because I actually have 2 clubs on there, financial intelligence mindset financial intelligence and wealth mindset. So I got some invites, and it's really, really, really good. And just talking about information, right? I mean, I'm going to kind of move the discussion on a bit, right? So with you in your business, etc., how much do you say use information to make decisions? Yeah, I mean, when I say that, what I mean is that whether or not is to decide who you're going to work with, whether or not is decided which area of business to go into, how much do you kind of collect and use information to make decisions? And the reason why I ask that, because obviously this podcast is called Financial Intelligence Mindset. I don't think about the name. Financial intelligence is obviously using information to make decisions. And the whole mindset is just about people's, if you want to call it, attitude towards sort of using information. And I think people's attitude are actually changing because people realize that no longer can you just make decisions based on gut feel. Now you need information. So I was just asking you, in not just financial, but whether it's business information, whether it's MI, whether it's research, how much do you actually use information?
A lot, I think, and I think it's that I think is one of the things I think that's been so transformative about this sort of whole crisis, because some of the information, like, let's say before you had to go to like a seminar where, I don't know, somebody rented a hall or whatever to get that information. Now you
Yes.
can get it online. People have moved online just because they couldn't travel or whichever.
Yeah.
I think it is very interesting, and information is key. I think there's so much out there. I think there's a lot of overload. So I think you have to also look where you get your information from.
Correct.
But I think, if you're open-minded and if you want to educate yourself, then it's there. You just have to find it. And I think we are so lucky compared to, let's say, 25, 30 years ago. People had to go to the library to find information. Like now, it's incredible. It's just there,
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Cool, cool. All right. So let's talk about you specifically and your relationship with finance or with money per se. Yeah. How would you describe your money journey? Like, I mean, like when you were younger, growing up, I mean, how much did you learn about managing money, say in school or from your parents? I mean, because obviously as a business owner, I imagine that you do have to manage your expenses. You do have to manage your money now. But how much of that would you say that you learned when you were sort of younger and growing up?
Yeah. Sorry, it like literally started to absolutely pour down with rain here.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah. Where are you right now?
Like in London, it's just crazy. It really, it's like literally, like it's mad.
I know. I mean, I know. I tell you, I remember was in March. Yeah, March. Yeah, one day, like this was like the weirdest thing ever. We went from a hot sunny day on the Sunday to a really cold day on the Monday to snow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
and
It's
then
crazy.
and then back to sun. So I guess that's just London weather for you.
Yeah, true. Well,
But
anyway.
it's a lovely place. London's a lovely place.
Yeah.
I really love it anyway.
Yeah. So, okay. So to come back to your question is, this is a really interesting question because I've always been very good with money, and then maybe one thing I should share is I actually, I am German, so I'm not British,
Yeah.
and I grew up in East Germany,
Yeah.
and until I was about 12, that was when the wall came down, and from what the system was then to what the system then went. So basically you went from socialism to capitalism.
Yeah.
And it was a huge learning curve for everyone, because before everybody roughly had the same. Okay, some people had a tiny bit more, but it wasn't like the divide was not that big.
Yeah.
And then once the wall came down and basically Germany reunited, it became very apparent that it was very different.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, like my dad always used to say, you know, like if you work more, you can do more. So you need
Yeah.
to put yourself out there and you need to just do stuff. So he always had that kind of mindset. And for me, I think from a very sort of young age, that was what I was exposed to. And I was always quite good with money. And, you know, like when I was younger, me and my friend, we had like a little spreadsheet where we
Yeah.
would
Wow.
list whatever pocket money we would have and then what we could afford in terms of, I don't know, like makeup or whatever it was at the time. So we were always very good in sort of sorting that out. And I still actually do that to this day.
Wow.
I have a spreadsheet. I know exactly what goes out of the account and what comes in, and that's business and private. And I don't know, it's very important to me because I always feel I need to look at it and I need to make sure I'm going to be okay. Like my staff is going to be okay, my business is going to be okay. And then also, but then at the same time, I will also like evaluate, you know, is it worth it paying for this, that, and the other, you
Yeah.
know, as an investment in your business? And
Hmm.
does it make sense? And, you know, one of the biggest learning curves, I think, for me is also that sometimes, you know, you need to invest money in education.
Yes.
Education where you yourself educate yourself, whether it be about business or, you know, mindset or whatever those things, because these things never existed. Or at least we were never exposed to them at the
Yeah.
time. So, but yeah, finance is a big thing for me, and I can tell you, it's very funny actually because I can tell you exactly what came out of the account, and I will pick up in a split second if something is there that shouldn't be there.
Wow. That's really good. That's good. I mean, yeah, I mean, you give so much of gems right there, right? It's like that is obviously knowing your ins, knowing your out is good. But I like what you said that you people need to also invest in their education, in their knowledge. And that knowledge could also include actually itself just knowing how business work, knowing how finance work. You know what I mean? I mean, you even said that you was using a spreadsheet as a youngster. I would say that is like wow. That is. I try to get my 15 stroke 16-year-old son to use a spreadsheet. I don't think he's really understanding the value of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if you had an advice for someone who was starting a business right now, you know, what are some of the things that they should be looking to do to get to put in place or have in place? I mean, yes, say they were starting up a business to do, I don't know, a training business, for example, or any business. Yeah. Yeah. How would you advise them to start out?
I mean, first of all, I would say, and this is certainly still how I manage it. I mean, first of all, you need to get a good accountant to
Mm-hmm.
make sure you have somebody in your corner that looks after your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, I would split my accounts. I would have one account where, you know, all the money that comes in comes in. But from whatever money comes in, I would take off whatever it be, a third or whatever. I'd calculate roughly out what you need for taxes, for, you know, national insurance and those kind of things. And that I would move to the second account. So I would not even look at this because that needs to be there. And that
Mm-hmm.
is something that you need to have because this is just not negotiable. You know, like you need to pay your tax bill.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. If you move that to a separate account, then that's not what you can spend on education. And then you look at what you have in your account and then you evaluate how you can spend that and how, you know, how much, I don't know, let's say, for example, you join like a networking group. How
Yeah.
much value are you really going to get out of this? And is it worth the fee? And break it down into the months and, you know, how many meetings do you have a month? And did you actually get any business out of it? So it's that kind of, I think, mindset. But at the same time, I think also look at stuff that makes your life much easier. You know, for example, like, maybe, you know, if you're a business starting out and you haven't got the money for like social media, then maybe invest £100 into Canva and do your own social.
Yeah. Yeah.
do your own things. But it's that, I mean, obviously as you grow, you then have more flexibility to hire somebody. But I think you need to be resourceful. And I think nowadays, I think there's so many resources that we have, and we just need to use them to our advantage.
Wow, wow. I like that. So obviously get an accountant, be organized, as you said, so many stuff anyway. But I think most importantly, what you're actually saying that if someone is starting a business, is almost like they're really got to do their homework as well, I would say.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. And as you said, be resource. I mean, the biggest word that you said there for me is to be resourceful. You know, yeah,
I think that's one of the things that I've learned also, like with educating myself. It's never, there's never a lack of resources. I think you
yeah,
can always find something.
of
Sometimes you need
course.
to think a little bit different in order to make it happen. But just to say, oh, I haven't got the money, that's just not an excuse. You need to just,
Yes,
think outside the box. There will be
yes.
somebody else who can help you.
It's amazing you said that, right? Because I'm actually running a group coaching program right now. And then there's someone who I kind of gave a scholarship. I mean, she came through my sales call and she was passionate. She didn't have the money. And then and I was asking, and then he was talking, and like, how are things going? And she goes, oh, I got some challenges. I haven't got it. I said, look, if you got a really good business idea, what you got to do is to like make sure that you put together a proposal and then go to someone who has more resources than you and then tell them about the proposal. Tell them, I got this great business idea. I'm looking for XYZ. Say, I'm looking for $1,000. I'm looking for a laptop and whatever. In return, once I start making money, I will pay you back with 20% interest or 15% interest. You know what I mean? And you will find someone, because there are always people who are willing to help people who has a really, really good business idea. So I quite like that a lot, being resourceful. Okay. What would you say is your biggest money mistake? And
My
kind of what
biggest
happened? Yeah, biggest mistake with money or finance or investments.
I think it's probably, God, when I was much younger, I think I invested something in stocks on the advice on somebody else. I didn't
Yeah.
really, spend a lot of time on it. I didn't really research it. And then basically the whole thing, I think, um, basically crashed. And I
Yeah.
was lucky because this was one of those things that was government protected at the time. So I got my money, I got most of my money back, I should say, but it took about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And and I think it was down to lack of education, but what was even worse afterwards, then I was like, I am never gonna invest into stocks and stuff ever again. And this was so
Wow.
no, and this was so silly because it was just, you just need to change your mindset about this.
Yes.
And then again, this is funny. This is also something that happened only like a few years ago, not that long ago. I then started looking into it and looking into different things. And then I felt, okay, I'm in control here. I'm going to try this or this, but let me just redo this because this is just a silly thing to think. It
Yes.
happened once, like let's never do it again. I mean, you'll miss so many opportunities.
Of
So I
course.
would say, again, going back to education, and maybe if you do sometimes invest, maybe invest money that you can afford to lose. So maybe start small with like £500, for example. Like you don't need to think about thousands and thousands, or even start with £100 and see how that goes, and then make a decision on whether you're going to do more
Yeah,
or whether
that's,
you're going to
yeah.
pull out.
I mean, that's so powerful, right? I think the biggest thing I always say to people is investigate before you invest.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you understand what you're investing in. Do good. So do you now invest in stocks and shares and stuff, or you still kind of?
I do actually. I invested in like a couple of different funds. I even invested in Bitcoin.
Wow, you like myself as well. Like myself as well. You know what I mean? Yeah, I invested in Bitcoin in 2017.
Oh,
I
lucky
mean,
you! You got on
yeah,
much earlier than
yeah.
me.
I mean, I do have a feeling, and someone told me that recently it might come down crashing. These things all have a bubble, but I'm still hoping I reach 100,000,
That
one
would
bit,
be good.
one
Yeah,
Bitcoin, and then I can start smiling a bit more.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's good. And what would you say is your biggest money success? Like a big
My
win or money. Yeah, just any big money, good money story to share with us that made you
uh,
happy.
Yeah. Well, I think when I first came to London initially, I lived sort of like in a flat share, and my boyfriend, which is my husband now at the time, actually moved in with me, and we
Hmm.
lived in this tiny little room for about a year. And then we were like, okay, let's just find something bigger for just the two of us. And
Hmm.
and the one thing I said to him was like, okay, I'm not going to go and pay somebody else's mortgage. I think we got to find something that we can buy.
Yes.
And I think that was the best thing we could have ever done. So we had about a year to save up for a deposit and whatever, and then we bought a flat, and it's been like the best investment ever, I think.
I like what you said. I mean, that is a solid advice, you know. I would say, like even where I'm living now, what I'm able to afford. I mean, of course, I'm an accountant, and I worked in London. I made good money, but I'm only able to do I mean, enjoy the lifestyle I have now because I invested not just in properties, but in stocks and shares and other stuff. You know, but I think investing in property in London is so much like it's just so crazy. I mean, I have this property that has gone up like 300%. You know what I mean? A property can go up. I was just checking something last night on Zoopla actually, like um, like like 50,000 in 4 years. That's just 50,000 property value increase in 4 years. It's like you
Yes.
have, that's whether or not you did anything to it. You know,
But I also think, I mean, with property in general, I mean, it's just something that nobody can sort of take from you. It's something tangible. It's not like a
yeah,
car or some luxury clothes or whatever. And it's also like it gives you security because it's a roof over your head at the end of the day. Because if you rent, they can always kick you out because
yes,
I don't know, they may need something else, or they want to, push up the rent or whatever it may be. But I think if it's your own, the only thing you have to worry about is just pay your mortgage, and then you'll
yeah.
be fine. And that most of the time, I think, especially if you look back on the last 10 years, I mean, interest rates have been so low. I mean,
Yes,
it's
yes.
it's
It's
just
like it's like an
incredible.
insane time not to buy. It's like
Yes,
I mean, you gotta be going mad not to buy a property.
yes,
And
yes.
it's quite interesting. I mean, I like the fact that you decided to do that because some people might decide, and a lot of people actually, they choose to buy a car, a nice car, rather than actually buying their own property. And oftentimes, the people who have these nice cars are still renting. As a matter of fact, someone came to my house here to set something up for me on the weekend. I was talking and I was telling him I got an apartment to rent downstairs and stuff. And then he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for a 2 bedroom apartment or whatever it is to rent." And I haven't got 2 bed now. No, I was like quite shocked that he was actually renting because me and my brother, we ship a few vehicles down from London, and we shipped to him. My brother shipped to him like a few vehicles recently,
Hmm.
and he said, yeah, he's renting, and then he explained to me why he was renting. I mean, maybe he might even listen to this podcast, or someone who knows him might listen to this podcast. You never know because it's listened widely. But at the same time, the excuse he gave me for not buying, I just kind of, yeah, I just left him. But he was saying to me that he bought the cars cash.
Wow.
So, but his income is not so stable. But yet still, he can still pay the rent. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, if you work it out, instead of buying the car cash, if you make a big deposit down on a property, you might end up paying a cheaper mortgage than your
Correct.
rent. So,
Correct.
so oftentimes what people have to do, and that's why I have this podcast called Financial Intelligence Mindset, is actually to do the numbers, to understand, the pros and cons of doing stuff. So yeah, so I mean, that's is really, really, really good. Cool. So if you have $1 million right now, I mean, maybe you already have 1 million, I don't know. But if you, yeah, but if you came into a windfall right now, what would you do with it? I mean, what are some of the things you might do with it?
You know, I mean, to be honest, I think maybe I would buy maybe like another property. I would definitely invest in some more stock and shares. I would give a little bit to sort of different people, different organizations, because I also think, it's not all just about money. I think it's also about sharing it and
Of
giving back.
course.
Yeah, and then I mean, of course, like the usual things. I think it would just give you some more security for, like the education of my son and things like that. But like to me, I don't feel whether I would have 1 million now or not. This is kind of just wishful thinking, because I think you can make it happen yourself.
Of
I think,
course, of course, of
and
course,
that's the kind of mindset you need to have.
of
I mean, it's
course.
like, I don't understand all these people that always say, oh, I wish to win the lottery. And you know how many people won the lottery and they were so unhappy afterwards.
And they became broke actually.
And they became broke because the mindset was not there. And I always say to people, if you cannot live on, let's say, £1,000, you're never going to be able to live on £100,000, because you're just going to spend like you did before. You overspend and you overcompensate for whatever you think you need, but you don't actually need.
I like it. I like it.
I think you need to live within your means, and then it will always work.
Yeah, I agree. And also, you can live $1 million life with a salary of thousands.
Yeah, I agree.
You actually don't need 1 million to live $1 million life.
No,
Okay, so looking to wrap up now. So how would you describe yourself? A saver, spender, investor? Which one of those, if you had to pick one of those, which one would you say you are?
I would definitely say investor at this point.
And were you always an investor, or were you a saver?
I think so. I think at one point I was a saver, until I think I learned that's not actually going to get you anywhere. So I think you need to come up with different ideas, and sometimes you need to take a risk.
Of course. And why would you say that wouldn't get you anywhere? Why? I mean, what made you think that?
Because you see that, sometimes if you like, I don't know, let's say you have £100,000 and you leave them in your bank account.
Yeah.
It would make a lot more sense if you make that £100,000 work for you. Like, you invest maybe, let's say, 50,000 into a property and the other 50,000 in stocks and shares. So then you kind of spread it out all evenly, so the
diversify.
Exactly. So the risk is in different areas and not all in one. But if you leave it in your savings account, okay, maybe it'll grow a little bit, but it's never going to give you the return what, like a property or maybe some stocks will give you. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, 100%. It will give you a much better return.
Wow. That's so great, man. You're giving some really, really good advice, I guess, based on your experience as well. So I ask this question to a lot of people who comes on this podcast. I'm going to ask you, what does the term financial intelligence mindset means to you? Or financial mindset, if you want to call it that. Yeah. Well, what does that really mean to you?
I think, it means that you work with what you have and you try and make informed decision. I think, again, it goes back to education. I think you need to just take some time to educate yourself and then make a decision on it. But I think sometimes small things can make a big difference. Even if, for example, you don't have a lot and you just put £100 aside every month, at the end of the year, it still adds up to something, and then you can do something. Whilst if you always live just on the limit where you can just about manage, then the problem is also, if anything unexpected happens, then that becomes a problem and your problems become a lot bigger, So I think you need to have a few things in place. And I think there's so many things nowadays. I think the banks even offer, like, let's say if you pay £3.53 here, they'll take the other 47p and put them in a saving account. Small things like that, but they can all add up. Or it's sometimes, as much as, Like, do you need to buy a coffee from a coffee shop every day for £3 or £4? Because if you add that up over the month, that costs you a lot of money. And maybe that money is better if you invest it or if you keep it for something that you really want.
Yeah, I like it, man. Wow, I can see that you are really cute. I mean, first of all, I'm really grateful that you came on here because you are very cute up on these things. So I mean, like, as I think you offer training and all that kind of stuff. I mean, where can people find you? I mean, are you on podcast yourself, or I mean, you have
Yeah,
Instagram?
definitely.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Yeah, so pretty much anywhere you can find me on LinkedIn under Corina Goetz, my company StarCat. You can find me on Instagram. So we have one Instagram for StarCat. There's one for myself, which is StarCat Corina, and then so we have a YouTube channel which is called Under Palm Trees, because we have conversations with different people about the Middle East.
Yes,
so
yeah.
kind of felt, hence also the palm tree in the logo. You know, it kind of all combines together. And
I
then
like the palm tree. I love it.
Yeah, and then you can also find us on the website, on our website, which is www.star-cat.co.uk. And by the way, CAT is not for cat, it actually stands for consulting and training.
I like it. I was actually going to ask you how do you come up with the name Star Cat? So
yeah, Star for sort of like 5-star, and then CAT, consulting and training.
You know, it's unique. It's very unique. It's very unique, you know. All right. So I'm Corina. I mean, do you have any question for me? I mean, I know I asked you lots of questions. I just want to give you the opportunity.
This was really fun. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun and very informative. And I love that you also diversify in, you know, property, stocks, Bitcoin.
Yeah, great. I mean, I myself, I came to London and I studied accountancy, and I ended up working in financial services. And my very first job was called, proper job in the city, was called expenses and cash management accountant.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and then so you have to understand that I was managing a budget for the company. And then cash management accountant, I started managing around 40 bank accounts. All different current. I think that was just before the euro came in. So all of the European countries had even their own currency. And then literally within 1 year, I took over the investment management. So I was setting up mutual funds, doing a lot of stuff with investments, etc. And I think I met someone just around Fenchurch Street, actually. I met someone in the boots. And she asked me, and I just, being friendly, coming from the Caribbean as we are. And I just started chatting with her. And then she says to me, we just started chatting, became friends. She said to me, let me ask you a question. Are you renting, or do you own your property? And I said, I'm renting. She said, no, you got to buy your property. And literally in the next year, I bought my property within a year. Excellent. So I would say I've had good advice, but I've also had good exposure. But I'll also say I've had the mindset, I mean, look, I'm out here in the Caribbean right now. I'm a very visionary person. So I always wanted to come back and have freedom, and I mean, like, and so sometimes I think it's not just pure luck, it also, a lot of it is mindset and vision and focus. Agree. And a lot of things that you've spoken about. And I'm really happy that you came on. Thank you for accepting my invite. I'm going to be pushing this out on social media and promoting you and promoting StarCat, and hopefully.
Thank you so much. Well, let me know. I'll share it on mine as well.
Of course. Yeah, it was great to speak with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
And have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.